Welcome to another Red Leaf Retrocast episode. Retro Gaming, episode 71. Doing Sega Rpgs. That is the theme of today's episode. I'm JD, of course, but I'm joined by Joey and Colin today. How you guys doing?
Hello.
All right.
Not too bad.
No Kevin. He's getting essentially kicked out of his apartment for dumb reasons. So he's gonna be. He might miss a couple podcasts. He's got a busy summer ahead of him for the rest of the time, it seems. So who knows when
Looks that way.
Yeah, who knows when we'll see him in the future. But we'll try and get him on best we can. Then again, we have said that in the past for other guest hosts. Doing like two words at once there. Guest and host equals ghost.
How appropriate since he's absent.
Yeah. So, that's the situation there. Retro magazine review before we get into our theme. A nice little topic I've come up with because of a big-time AAA title that has come out recently. I don't know if you guys have heard of The Last of Us 2. Part 2.
Only slightly.
Just slightly heard of it. Okay. So that's our topic kind of revolves around the idea of that and our games we've been playing. You guys surviving the craziness that is North America right now?
Well, my section of North America is fairly riot-free, so yeah. In fact, Ontario is entering its stage 2 of reopening.
Reopening. That went so well for us down here in Houston.
Yeah, it's going so well for you, isn't it, Joey?
So well, we took a step back.
How many steps back would you say?
Well, only one step because, the governor doesn't really care. But he closed the bars because that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
But restaurants and everything else are still open at 50% capacity. And I think hospital beds are like 100% capacity.
Yes, I heard the children's hospitals are now being overrun.
Yep, crazy. They sent out an alert on the phone saying that we're at like level red or whatever the hell that means. So I guess things are pretty serious.
Yeah, it should basically the country should shut down again. Basically, that's not going to happen though. Don't see it happen.
Yeah, they said they're not shutting Texas down again. So
they can try shutting it down, but I doubt it'll keep people inside, considering the climate.
Oh, right, yeah, political climate. With everyone's all pissed off at everything, and yep, it's the country's a mess. Europe has already declared that nobody from the United States can travel. I was just waiting for that news.
I just what are you doing? Don't get how wearing a mask is political.
Well, you see, Joey, it's my body, thing? My choice.
Except for everything else that only relates to mask, nothing else, because then the government can tell you what to do.
Right, yeah. It's ridiculous. I have vastly
the no
enjoyed...
shoes, no shirt, no service. It's stupid.
I have
and Japan didn't shut down. Everyone just wore a mask.
Well, they mostly wear masks as a norm.
So if we don't want to shut down, we just need to wear a goddamn mask. But people can't do that, so we're gonna need a shutdown again.
Well, Joey, when you cut off someone's air supply, then it's a problem.
And I was outside walking the dog this morning. I can't even breathe in humidity, so what's the difference from wearing a mask?
Yeah, right. You can't breathe in the first place.
Nobody goes outside in Houston.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk some video games. Enough about this political nonsense, like wearing masks. Joey, you've been playing more
Only
FIFA.
in North America is wearing masks political.
Yes, I have. Finished my second season with Sunderland. Took 6 in the championship, so I made it into the playoffs, made it to the Premier League, won the FA Cup, and won the Europa. And then I was like, I really need a new team. And the only team that sent an offer was Liverpool. So now my guy's playing for Liverpool, which sucks because it's like playing on easy mode. It's not really fun. I had to turn up the difficulty, and I think I might have to turn it again because first 2 games on the day I was playing like 5-0 and then 6-0, and then I turned it up 1 and I still won 4-0. So I think I might need to go up to like the second highest level just to make it interesting.
Yeesh.
They're just too good.
Well, they haven't really, over the years, the sports games, they haven't changed how gameplay evolves at all in half a decade at minimum. So big problem in those games. What else you got for us?
That's it. I've been really playing that.
Okay. How about yourself, Colin?
Once again, I've just been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, aside from podcast games. A couple of which are for the next cast after this one. You'll see why in time, those in the audience. But I'm on Chapter 16 of FF7, and I've just finished the virtual arena challenges, so I'm ready to continue with the story.
Yeah, you're the final stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Right at that final stretch. Did you do everything in the arena?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the very least, every normal difficulty challenge.
Right. Okay.
Although, on a related note, I got myself one of those mini pedal bikes that you can put under your desk and pedal while you either work, watch movies, or play video games.
Oh, sure, yes. Exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so now I can stay active even while I'm gaming. It's even useful for keeping my arms active. If I'm watching Netflix or even a Let's Play for a game for the podcast, I can just plop it up on the desk/table and then pedal it with my hands while I'm watching. So even if my legs are tired, I can keep burning calories with my arms. And since I got it, I've lost like maybe 2 pounds, so it's worth looking into for everybody who finds themselves sitting down all day.
For Final Fantasy VII, you got any big pros or big cons at this point in the game?
Not particularly, at least as far as cons. I mean, pros, I've already sung plenty of the game's praises in previous casts. I mean, graphics are outstanding, the gameplay is sufficiently challenging, and the story's very well tooled compared to the first game, although the first game still has a certain charm that you can't quite recapture in modern times.
Sure.
But
I said something very similar. I agree with that.
I'm still really enjoying it, and I'm going to finish it to the end, or what counts as the end at this point in time.
Do you plan on getting the behemoth summon?
I don't know. I mean, I've already put almost 40 hours into the game.
Jesus.
I've been doing all the side quests. I'm gonna beat it, and then if I get bored at some point, I mean, I'll keep a separate save file that's like at the virtual reality thing, so that I can keep like grinding certain materia in order to get that summon.
Yeah, it's exactly what you should do.
Yeah. But in the meantime, on a separate file, I'll just continue with the story so I can see how that turns out.
Okay. Alrighty. Anything else?
After looking it up last night, I found out that the guys at Gears for Breakfast are finally in the process of releasing the DLC for A Hat in Time on PS4 and Xbox.
Wow, that took a long time.
Yeah, I guess.
4 years?
Yeah, really.
That's when Hat in Time came out? 2016?
I can't remember. I'll have to look that up.
I feel like that's when it came out. Let's see here. I'm gonna look it up as you keep talking.
But yeah, I was worried for a while that I'd have to get the Switch version just to play it, the DLC. But there's like 2 different extra worlds that you can go to. There's the Yakuza Metro, which is like Japanese urban center style thing with a cat theme. And then there's Seal the Deal, which I'm not quite sure goes on in that one, but all the same, more Hat in Time is always a good thing for me, because I love that game.
So the PS4 Xbox version came out in late 2017.
Yeah.
I remember covering it on the podcast. Not sure when the Steam version. Probably way before that.
Yeah, I think I can safely call A Hat in Time one of my all-time favorite games, so I'm looking forward to being able to play more of it.
High praise, high praise. Yeah, I quite enjoyed the game too. I think I'd rate it that high, personally. A game I definitely had an experience trying to get to work was Ninjala. Have you guys heard of this?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
Joey, are you familiar with a game called Splatoon at all?
Yes, I know Splatoon.
Okay, so imagine that game, but instead of squirt guns, now you have melee weapons. Okay?
Huh.
And instead of squid, your squid people going into the ground in ink form or squid form, Ninjala, your characters you can parkour on walls and stuff. So it's essentially melee Splatoon at its core. It's totally free to play. It's got microtransactions in it, but it's cosmetic only. So at this point in the game, at this point in the industry, I'm like, man, it's free to play, but I suppose that's okay. I'll have to just live with it at this point. And then I find out that there's actually a story mode that they're going to be coming out with in seasons. And so Season 1 story mode is $4. And I go, you know what? That is an interesting way to approach the new industry norm of microtransactions and DLC and type stuff. So I played, when I finally did get it to work, I'll get into that little story in a minute here. I played some online matches, created the character, goofy little characters. I love the art style. It's very much Splatoon-esque. And the gameplay is super fun. The camera, this cat of mine, is going nuts. It's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Please stay there.
Quick aside, you're going to want to mark down this timestamp. My Audacity, for some reason, stopped at like 11:51. 11 minutes, 51 seconds. So just mark this time down as I start a new project.
Okay.
Right now.
Alrighty.
What? Oh, fuck me. It's showing error opening recording device. Fuck my life.
Cool.
Looks like things are working out.
Working well. Alright. Well, it's alright, Colin. We have backup audio. Again, you're going to have to figure whatever's going on with your computer. Another time.
Yeah.
Second podcast in a row. It's alright. It's alright. We're all good. So, where was I? Oh yeah, so I played some online games. The camera is I'm still not used to it. It's a lot of shit happening and flinging around. I'm not a fan of the teleportation battle mechanic that the game has, because it makes the camera just go all wonky, and that's without automatic camera follow on. It's all manual based. So I just don't know why the game's made that way. I'm sure it'll be fixed in a patch later down the line. So the story mode is very much kind of like the story in Splatoon, and it's got goofy... It's presented in this comic book form in a lot of ways, which is, it's got its own little sense of humor to it, its own charm. And so I've been waiting on this game for 2 months now, and it was delayed, I think, twice. Due to, first it was the coronavirus, and then I think it was the coronavirus again. Or, no. First it was they needed more time because they did the Ninjala VIP experience, which I was a part of for a little bit. And the servers just could not handle basically people on them, so they had to delay to figure that out. And then the coronavirus hit, and that delayed it another month, so here we are. And I was waiting for this game to come out. It comes out after AEW Dynamite this past Wednesday, and for about 45 minutes, just could not get into the game. It was just error, server issues, connection issues. If you'd managed to get into the game and you do something as soon as you click to go to a different part of the game, you get booted again, so I just gave up till after work the next day. And then, after 2 more failures, I finally got in, and it was good to go from there. It was quite the horrible launch experience on the initial time frame. So that's my little Ninjala experience. But it's super fun. I'm gonna have a play session with my buddy Jay. He's gonna do that tomorrow. So, quite excited. Thoughts over Ninjala, guys?
I've been distracted trying to get my microphone to work, aside from the built-in one.
It sounds
happening.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, look into it. If you had a Switch, Joey, that would be something you and I could play, but oh well. Now,
It's not like I can buy Switches anymore.
Yeah, right. They're few and far between in society right now. So for the modern Gamecast, 2 games came out last week and a half ago. One was Last of Us 2, which I'll get into in a second, and then the other was Desperados 3, which is I want to speak in a little bit more detail on this one, on all the platforms that I have, because this game's really flying under the radar, and a lot of it has to do with coming out the same few day span as The Last of Us 2. So, Joey, this could be something you'd be very much interested in checking out, because I know you kind of like the top-down, maybe a bit of a strategy type game,
Yeah.
Okay, so you're it's Wild West, hence Desperados. Imagine, so the game isn't your atypical kind of real-time strategy game. What it more or less is it's a strategy game, but you're put into each mission is set onto a set map. So let's take, for example, mission, like your very second mission, where it's a train is being hijacked by a bunch of robbers, and you just your cowboy happened to be on it. He meets up with a doctor of sorts, and you have 2 characters, okay, that you have to control. And you start at the back of the train, and you have to work your way, not through the train, but you're working your way up the train. So whether that's on top of it, on the sides of it, and it's a bit of a top-down perspective. And the way enemies are set up, it's almost like it's in different sections, so you have to clear section A to get to section B to section C and so forth until you get to the very front of the train near the cave that's been kind of demolished to stop it. And so you basically figure out the puzzle in which how to take out the enemies efficiently without being seen, using your character's various skills that they have. Like one character can throw a coin for distractions. You can sneak behind the people. You can enable like Desperados mode, where it slows down time and you can do a super special attack, whatever your character is. So our main cowboy can do dual pistol and he can shoot 2 enemies at once situation. And it goes along like that. It's all gameplay. The story is just your, Western type stuff that's going on in society, and it's really fun. I am massively enjoying the game. I got to demo it out and then watched a couple reviews over some of my favorite reviewers, and they spoke highly of it. Colin Yahtzee spoke highly of this game.
Yeah, I saw his 0 punctuation video on it.
Yeah, and I very much concur. The only thing I really have a tough time dealing with is it's basically a port of, you would think, a computer game, because you can use the mouse to move along the camera, and it's a much easier that way. On the console experience, which I'm playing it on, it's through the right analog stick. So my brain is just kind of trying to figure out too many things at once, maneuvering people in XYZ axes with the camera flooding along up and down, left and right situation. Yeah, I can't wait to play more now that I'm done with The Last of Us 2. Yes, I have beaten the game. I beat it late last night. Very long play sessions. It's a 22+ hour game, depending on your pace to it all. It's fucking long. Last of Us 2. But Desperados 3 is definitely A tier right now. If it continues on its amazing pace and introduces more and more new things to me that makes the game fun, it could be an S tier by the end of the time, and I'll definitely...
It looks like it has a season pass.
Sure doesn't seem like it needs one. So, yeah, I mean, hey, DLC, it's, each mission seems to take around, 35 to 50 minutes, it seems. It's got the quick save feature that is very useful, especially on a console. It's fast load times, otherwise that would be a very jaunting and terrible experience where you're just waiting for load screens over and over again. Yeah. So I can't wait to play more and speak more about it on the Modern Gamecast. That should record in the next week or so. Now, Last of Us 2 came out. It's been review bombed by users on Metacritic, yet review sites all praise this game to high heaven. Perfect scores, 95s out of 100 minimum kind of situation. There's a few, like a Mr. Jim Sterling, who gave this game like a 7.5 out of 10 if he would to give it a score, which he said he doesn't do, but then he did at the end, which was kind of funny. Another site gave it like an 8 out of 10, and the people giving it lower scores, I think, are the ones I really feel after playing through the game that those are the ones that are looking at the game the right way, right? And that's how the majority of the people are looking at the game as well, right? Because if the user base doesn't like your game, then you've done something wrong, right? Is this crazy to say?
Not at all. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Joey, did you play the first Last of Us?
No.
I did.
You did, right?
Yeah.
And did you really enjoy it?
I did. I enjoyed it. I don't know that I really, really enjoyed it. At the very least, I didn't have the same kind of emotional investment in it that so many other people did.
Okay.
But
so,
yeah, I just didn't really care about any spoilers up to now, so I know what happens, and I know why a lot of people are pissed off, to the point that one Korean streamer actually on camera took his disc out and cut it in half with scissors.
Wow. So those reactions, I just don't really understand. I really don't. So I won't spoil anything on this podcast of what The Last of Us 2 is in the story. I'll just say a couple elements that I think need to be said, and I'll go into a lot more detail on the Modern Game Cast, obviously. The game is very up its own ass. Oh.
Uh-oh.
That was my mother. Gonna have
no
to...
cell phones on the cast.
Nah, come on. When she calls, it's very important. I will send her a text, though, saying, what's up?
Okay.
Alright. So, yeah, The Last of Us 2 seems to be up its own ass quite a lot in its story.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would say the first half is a very fun, excellent game. And I would say the game overall is fun. And it's technically, like, top-notch, right? I don't think you can make a game look and feel as good as this, right?
Yeah.
I think that's undisputed. The problem is, and I have just this, the more I played, the more the list just grew in just a lot of the little things adding up. And when I thought about it, it really suffers from a lot of the same problems as Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh, yeah?
Everything's overly animated, needless amount of detail for things that don't matter. Like opening a cabinet and the character's got to bend down, open the cabinet, breathe real heavy, stand back up, then lean over, look inside, and then you can grab the item.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, upgrading a gun. You gotta put the gun on the table. Gotta take it apart. Then when you do the upgrade, it's gotta go through all the individual motions of whatever upgrade you did, and then you can put it away. If you change your mind, I don't want to upgrade this weapon, go to another. It's gotta the character's gotta flip the gun, do this switch. It's so needless, right? And just utterly time consuming. And that's what hurt with Red Dead Redemption 2, right? The other thing was, when you're going area to area, a lot of things are rinse and repeat, right? In Red Dead Redemption 2, it was you're on the horse and you're just traveling the whole time, over and over and over again, until you finally get to the next section, and then it was a shooting gallery. Right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, you played it. I didn't.
Okay. Well, then take my word for it. Last of Us 2, it has a real bad habit of making you want to, or not want, basically making you play a certain way. It's been, like, it's categorized as an action horror game. I like, every time I wanted to, say, go guns blazing, that was only the option when this certain enemy called a stalker was there. Because they see you and they stalk you, right? No matter what. So that's your gun blazing section. Everything else is stealth. You don't have the freedom of choice in how you want to play through sections, which I felt the first Last of Us did very well. There was that balance of gameplay. Oh, okay, this section I have a little bit more ammo, and maybe I want to, maybe I want to blow all these dudes' heads off or whatnot. This one, there's such a scarcity of ammo the entire time, and you never know when, like, you're always expecting a big thing to come. So in your mind, you're going, I should probably conserve this ammo, or conserve this one. And I can tell you, that never happens. You never get the big thing. One time that happened, and I had so much ammo that I just blew it away in seconds, right? It was like a Resident Evil thing where I had rocket launchers, right? The whole time. Like beat a boss in less than a minute situation. Yeah. So the first half of the game was great, told a good story. I have my qualms about too much rinse and repeat gameplay and that, and then as I kept playing, all I kept hearing was, well, the second half is where it goes downhill, and the ending is terrible. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate the whole game. I can say no, but I can say the start of the second half it felt like a chore. Because what happens is you're a new character. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And your one... I hope I remember to say this on the Modern Cast, but in case I don't, I'll say it now, because I have been thinking about this. The game conditions you to think of whether it's characters or things in the game happening, right? Such as you're conditioned to hate this character basically from the start, with all of your being, right?
Uh-huh.
And then it switches at that halfway point to you being that character. And then it's starting to tell a story where you're supposed to start feeling for her, this character.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I hate her. Why would I care about? Okay, she's another human. Big BFD, right?
Yeah. It seems to be the other common complaint about the game.
So yeah, you were gonna say something, Joey?
I see where they're going, but I just don't think that really works with video games.
Well, no, it's the common trope of, and Jim Sterling said this, and he definitely put the right words in out there, where it was, as like, the grunts you kill left and right, no problem, no emotions, no feelings. But as soon as you give a character five words of dialogue, all of a sudden, the feels and emotions, right?
Yeah, I feel like it was trying and failing to be Spec Ops: The Line.
Well, that's why I said it's up its own ass in its story. It tries so hard to make everything so bleak, but the gameplay is fun that it's like, I get to beat this dog's ass because it's sniffing me out. Fuck you! I'm gonna kill the owner. I'm gonna pop the owner in the head with a silencer, and I'm gonna beat this dog with a pipe. Oh, but later I'm supposed to feel for killing a dog? Get out of here!
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And then fans of the first game are so wrapped up in Ellie and her story and who she is and her importance that anyone trying to kill her, fuck them, right? That's the mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since you've already spent a whole game with her, and now you spent the first half of a second game with her, and now you're supposed to hate the people who she's against, or love the people she's against.
Yeah, you're supposed to all of a sudden change your mindset. My opinion is this game was made out of order, the story. Because this game lives and dies by the story. Like, a lot. Way too much. I mean, I've played the big, heavy cinematic stories, whether it's the Yakuza series is a great example, where it's incredibly story-focused. But it breaks it up, and it's a well-told, linear story, right? Flashbacks are where they need to be. It's few and far between. This game breaks up gameplay by showing you a flashback, a flash forward, it wraps around, now you're this character. Everything's just out of whack with how it's presenting it. The story is it's almost like the beginning of Witcher, where you don't know what's going on or why for some of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I would say so at the beginning of the game, the very, very beginning, you're Ellie for a little bit, then you switch to this other character, right? And then you switch back to Ellie, and maybe, if it was alternating in between the two, that would have been a better narrative, right? Maybe you have a big flashback section for both characters. Maybe you just intertwine it. There's no reason to have an entire back half dedicated to this person that you've been conditioned to hate, right? It's very poor narrative storytelling, I say. And the ending sequence, the ending chapters, I would say, was totally unnecessary and accomplished nothing. And I think that's what I don't know if that's particularly what everyone's up in arms and hating on it, because it wasn't the climactic ending sequence that I hated. I just was questioning why this whole area existed in the first place, right? It felt like the game should have ended 5 to maybe even longer hours prior to that.
Yeah, I think that was another criticism I saw being thrown around, that there were plenty of other spots before the ending where it could have ended satisfyingly, but didn't.
Right, it just kept going. It just kept wanting to beat something over the head. Pun intended, I suppose. it was so bizarre playing it. Like, I never felt a visceral hatred for the game. I was just wondering, why are you doing this? I know what you're going for, but it's clearly the wrong idea and connection to it, because I'm not feeling what you're going for. And I'm clearly not alone on this.
Apparently not.
No. But I will say that back half of the game, there were some of the coolest sections and areas in the series, I will say. The one boss fight that I got was freaking sweet. It was just like something straight out of Resident Evil. That was awesome. I wanted more of that. Like, when the game got horror focused rather than humans are bad focused, which is the majority of the game, the horror is excellent. Very good. It felt like Resident Evil. It felt like the original Last of Us, with the clickers being these creepy enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just too much walking and talking a lot of the time to try to break up your action. I didn't feel like I was playing a game a whole lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember reading somewhere that when it came to the first Last of Us, the original director of the first 3 Uncharted games she had been in charge of that one, and for a little bit of Last of Us 2. But then, I forget the details, but she and Neil Druckmann had a falling out. She ended up leaving Naughty Dog, and then Neil Druckmann took over, and...
Right, I believe she went to EA to work on a Star Wars story that was inevitably canceled.
Not sure I remember that bit, but yeah, she definitely left Naughty Dog.
Yeah. And crazy enough, I could totally see that. I could theorize like when she was part of the game and when she left. I could definitely theorize. It's like, yeah, okay, I can see it. It's a big presentation game. That's what it is. I still had fun. A lot of it, I was just shaking my head, going, "Why are you doing this?" There was a section in Final Fantasy VII Remake the underground robot arm highway area that I absolutely viscerally hated. There's a section not quite like that in Last of Us Part 2, but it sure felt like it, where I'm just walking around, everyone's talking, and I'm just going, I fucking hate these characters. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? We're just walking. We're not doing shit. I'm so bored and I'm aggravated. That lasted for about an hour to 2 hours. So, but out of the 20+ hour games, I can forgive, because I got back into it eventually. So yeah, Last of Us Part 2. I'll go into much more bigger detail, much spoiler detail for the modern cast. I will put it on probably the back end of the podcast and do spoiler warning and all that. And if you don't care, then listen to that. That's for the next Modern Gaming episode. All right, guys, let's just get into the topic. I'm not playing no drops. Not yet, anyways. So,
okay.
On the topic of Last of Us Part 2, I spoke about the unsustainable detail and the over-elongating video games. So the Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us 2. AKA big budget, overproduced, and it must create a massive hit, or basically the studio failure seems inevitable.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So, Tomb Raider comes to mind immediately, with a game that has such a high budget, a lot of detail, a lot of unsustainable detail, and by that I mean, the high-end environments, how long it takes, the crunching over it all. This is a real issue in the video game industry, and from what I've read already, Last of Us 2 sold 4.5 million copies, and that's underperforming.
Yeah, it sounds like EA with Dead Space 3. They needed 5 million to justify the spending.
That is crazy.
It's just ridiculous.
Imagine I remember when a game was a massive hit for a studio when it sold like 500,000. So imagine how much money you pumped into making a game where your expectation is like 5, 6, 7 million copies. Do you realize how many games get that over like 2 generations?
Yeah, really.
That's not, say, a FIFA or a Call of Duty or, I don't know, Mario game, I guess? But the Mario games aren't that overproduced, right? Not to that extent, not to that budget level.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way to me. I mean, they got good graphics and everything and good visuals, but they don't like...
no problem, right?
They don't just like animate every tiny little detail. Of course, it's a very cartoony game, so you can get away with leaving certain things out.
Mm-hmm.
Or not animating things a certain way.
So, Joey, what do you think about all these studios doing these crazy, crazy budgetary titles and expecting so much?
I don't know. Red Dead Redemption 2 sold 31 million copies, so they did it fine. I mean, it's a risk, but if you're producing something people want, it shouldn't be a problem.
Mm-hmm. But we've seen here, like that's a success story, right? Of the risk is worth the reward, because then they met it, right? But in this case, with Last of Us 2, 4.5 million. I guess they were expecting 10 plus.
Probably. I mean, they could always go to the Grand Theft Auto 5 route and just put it on everything, so you can get 130 million copies sold because it's been around forever.
I mean, I could totally see them, because of how the game underperformed in sales, they'll bring it to Steam. I could see that happening.
I mean, I guess they're also thinking that the first game sold 20 million copies, so they're like, maybe the second one will sell more for some reason.
Do we think the spoilers and the leaks had something to do to contributing to the game's not making, 10 plus million?
No, I just think that, or at least for me, how the first game was, you either were a fan or you weren't. So there's already a split, and the non-fans aren't going to play the second game. And then only a few of the fans of the first one will get the second game. So maybe the spoilers ruined some of them, but I think a lot of them who wanted to play already had it pre-ordered. So I don't think this franchise, although everyone claims it to be so good, is something that would have a lot of selling power.
Okay. So you're saying that there was already a split audience upon, like, that 20 million. You're saying that, let's say, half weren't interested in a sequel. They weren't true fans. So let's say half were going to get the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, some people probably got the first one, and they might have bought the first one, not liked it. So not all the 20 million people liked the first game. And then
right, that's what I'm saying.
You're really going to expect more to get to the second one when I don't know. I know I'm never going to buy those games. They don't seem like something I would enjoy. So, and I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. So, I don't know. I think for something like that, yeah, they probably weren't too smart thinking they would have this gigantic following for a second game. Unless they thought that switching game was going to be groundbreaking and everyone was going to flock to play it, but I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I noticed when the reviews came out, the review embargo was only for the first half of the game. They didn't even review the back half, which is what majority of people are upset about, including the ending. So I'm wondering if the reviews just reviewed that first half. Like, that's all they played.
I mean, to be honest, I think I read some spoilers, but I didn't read all of it. So I don't know how it ended.
Yeah.
So I know like one thing, but I think that happens pretty early on in the game. So
yeah.
I don't think spoilers play too big a thing, but I think everyone jumping on the bandwagon to hate it, I think that might have been bigger than the spoilers.
It became the cool thing to hate it kind of situation, the bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, I think the subreddit's even just all about like bashing it and talking about other things. But I mean, people are going to enjoy it, but I don't think a lot of people are going to speak out about enjoying it since there's so much of a circle joke about hating it.
Sure. No, I can see that. Colin?
I think part of the reason there's such a rush to hate the game is that Neil Druckmann actually came out and said that a certain YouTuber with the initials AS was a big influence on the game. Or his.
AS?
I'll just say it. Anita Sarkeesian.
That.
That's.
I'm not sure if you're joking or not.
I'm not joking. I'm not the type of guy to be up in that kind of stuff.
That's the big divide with her and her views on games and her campaigns against games, and then the counterculture against her that's just way out of whack. She thinks it's too much.
Let's not forget she claimed to be a gamer at first, but then later confirmed she wasn't a gamer.
Yeah, so she's one of the ones who are pushing too much, like games are just for boys and all that fun stuff, and all the sexuality of stuff in games, and huge feminist, but like just hate games to hate games, and people have giant hate boner to hate her back. I
think I do know who this person is. Okay.
She loves to hate things, and people love to hate her, and it's just kind of annoying.
I gotcha. So Kevin just messaged me. He might be jumping on here, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. So my thought, back to the topic at hand here. My thoughts over these big budget titles, and I keep going back to Tomb Raider. We could actually go to God of War Ascension as another example, because that was a heavily overproduced title, and due to the success of the first three, they pumped a lot of money into the fourth one. And there's something to be said about sequels and sequel-driven stories that if you pump more money into the next one, then I think it's safe to say that expectations for an audience also are higher for that title, and then the studio's expectations for selling are twice as much, right? Is that crazy to kind of put two and two together on that one?
Sounds about right.
So where I'm kind of going with that is, in the case of God of War Ascension, it got decent reviews. It got a monetary amount of success. It's one of the best looking games on the PS3, right? However, the franchise itself was kind of stale, and it almost killed the entire God of War franchise, right? Because of how unsuccessful selling it was. Dead Space 3, Colin, you brought that up, right?
Yeah.
That's another great example.
That was EA sticking their fingers where they didn't belong.
Okay, Kevin says he'll be home soon. All right, so it'll be a little bit. So he'll probably join in for the Sega Rpgs.
Cool.
Yeah, maybe we'll get his quick Last of Us 2 thoughts, because he's currently playing the game. He just got into the second half, so he's definitely someone that has not the sheep mentality of everyone's video game opinions.
But I think one thing I would say the difference between The Last of Us 2 and Red Dead Redemption 2, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think you can pick up Red Dead Redemption 2 without playing the first one or knowing what the first one was about, and you can be fine. But The Last of Us 2 seems like you need to know what went on in the first game to really get into the second game. So there's that commitment where you need to be playing the first game to get to the second game, but something like Red Dead Redemption 2, you just pick up and play, and who cares?
I suppose, yeah, the story is not totally... The previous story is not totally necessary to feel the connection of the characters. Yeah, I think that's a very valuable, valid argument to be made there. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean that is a real thing. Why, say, we see a lot of... I mean, we spoke about this a little bit in the previous themed episode over why we see games and franchises kind of stop at 3, or if they go to a 4, then they just plummet in sales, and then you never see the franchise again. Or you see just, like, them try to pump out, like, 2 more titles, and they're even worse, right? To kind of make up for the ground. That's why you see a lot of that. That's also why you see reboots after the 3 mark, right?
Yeah, sounds about right.
They called this Part 2, and I don't... Like, it kind of sets it up for a sequel and more, right? In weird ways, so... I could see
sequels.
DLC.
Oh. I can see sequels with, like, completely new characters in a completely new location, because the whole world created by the first game is rife for that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just hope that Naughty Dog calms down with this absolute insane amount of detail, because it's clearly not sustainable. Because if you mess up just one time, you're done, right?
Yeah.
That's
plus
kind of, I think, the lesson to be made.
From the sounds of it, all the crunch involved caused like 70-something% of the developers to leave Naughty Dog.
Yeah, there you go.
They had a revolving door policy.
Yeah. Disgruntled workforce is not good. So
yeah.
All right.
I mean, a company is more than its name. It's the people who work there.
Okay. So let's I'll just do a quick retro magazine review. I'll just play this nice little drop here. Nice segue.
All right.
Alrighty. We had a lot to talk about there. The top of the podcast. Okay. All right. So yeah, retro magazine review. This will be a nice little quick one here. Episode 6 that we're going back to, Unknown Horror Games episode. Still one of my favorite episodes we've done on the podcast. Just from games I've never played before, what we talked about, discovered, and one of the game for review here is Dino Crisis. Released July 1st, 1999, otherwise known as Capcom's Dinosaur Resident Evil. And I read the EGM magazine. They gave it an 8 out of 10. Enhance and alters the Resident Evil formula with strength of its own merits. Then it just kind of goes into a lot of Resident Evil comparisons from there. And that seemed to be a theme, because as I read the GamePro review, where they gave it a 4.5 out of 5, they did the same thing. And then probably the quote to take away is, it's also found on even Dino Crisis Wikipedia page, is they found the game to have a great mix of action and strategy with the dinosaur AI that keeps the action fresh. So, Colin, you've played Dino Crisis?
I have not.
You have not?
I've heard of it, but I haven't played it.
Okay. I think Kevin's here.
Yay.
Yeah. So this kind of got me to think about, so you have a studio, right? Let's take Naughty Dog as an example, since that's kind of the big punchline of the podcast today. They've done the Uncharted series, and now the Last of Us series. You know, they got 2 games for that now. And I felt like Last of Us 2 was more towards Uncharted rather than, the previous Last of Us title. Is it fair for reviews and reviewers and people like you and me to straight up compare titles to sort of its predecessor in other franchises that the company has made? So, for example, Dino Crisis here is a lot like Resident Evil. Is that a fair comparison to make and review strategy, I guess we can say it as? Anybody?
I guess.
No thoughts at all? You guys are killing me.
Not really.
I don't know. I mean, there could be some comparison because you know what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say maybe it's not story-wise or theme, but like mechanics and things. It would be safe to say you can compare because those things can exist across franchises.
Okay. Yeah. Like in this case with the dinosaurs, instead of zombies, now the dinosaurs are bigger and faster. That creates a different sort of horror with the same mechanics that were built before it. Right? Being that it's the same studio, just I guess visually each company has their own arc, you could say. Because when you pop in a PlayStation Resident Evil game, PS1, PS2 era, right? And you look at Capcom Resident Evil, you know what that game looks like, right? You can picture it in your head.
Yeah, but I think that's more because it's cheaper just to upgrade a little bit than to redo.
How so?
Well, if you already got the look of it for one game, might as well just upgrade it for the next game. You don't need to reinvent it. Just keep it slightly the same, and then once you kind of have a look, you can take that and just change a little bit for the next game, so you don't have to spend all the money on design.
You already have your assets made. Yeah. I mean, we see a lot of that with the Tomb Raider franchise, right? At least in its early days, those first 5 games, they just kind of updated the polygons, all the triangles and rectangles.
And more triangles, and more triangles.
A game is only good with more triangles. Yeah, so Dino Crisis got pretty good reviews, a little less than the Resident Evil games. So I guess it was I didn't really see anything. This is what I think a lot of reviewers leave out, is the what could be improved aspect, or what it was missing aspect in games. Like if a game has an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 rating, they're never really bring me. Oh, Kevin's here.
Oh,
hey, he showed up.
Am I here? Might be here. Hold on.
No, we can definitely hear you. He made it.
Didn't hear anything. What the hell? Uh-oh. How about now?
Yeah, we hear you.
We can hear you.
You're coming through my computer and not my headphones. What the hell? Cool. I am the one with the issues.
Well, you're the second.
You're the second one with the issues, Kevin.
Whatever. I have issues. I understand.
Oh, we all know that.
Not wrong. You're not wrong. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, man?
How's it going?
How's the moving?
Yeah.
Super fun.
No. I'm still trying to get you through my headphones. Nothing's going right.
Join the club.
No, I figured. Anyway, I hope this doesn't get picked up on the thing later, but here we are. Anyway,
here we are. So, got two questions for you, Kevin.
Uh-oh.
Do you remember covering Dino Crisis way back when?
Yeah, I remember playing that game and I go, "Yep, that was Resident Evil."
Okay, well, that answers that.
Yeah, that's exactly
what we were talking about.
Somebody that whole conference meeting must have been like somebody sniffing cocaine and going, "What if dinosaurs, though?" You know, it's pretty much how I saw that. Anyway,
all right. And then second question.
Yes.
Give us your loose non-spoiler thoughts over Last of Us 2. That's the big topic.
I mean, you and I have been talking about it back and forth for how long, and
since the game came out.
Yeah, you keep warning me there's going to be a point where the narrative gets weird, and I guess I'm right there according to you, but I don't see it. I just got to a part where you play as a different character who I'll refer to as Beth Lesnar. And she, at that point, it kind of feels like Uncharted, but it's Naughty Dog. So
I said the same thing.
Yeah, but I honestly think the first game's still better, but this game is still good. So no issues yet. Not really, at least.
What are your pros and cons to The Last of Us 2 so far?
Let's see. But like the pros, I think the story's great. I like the tying in the first game and the second game with like what happens in between, and like how Ellie kind of learns what Joel really told her versus like what she knows. I like all that. The only con I don't like is that it's way more narrative than the first game, and which isn't bad, but I think I said it to you. There's way less zombies in this one. Like I think I'm doing way less zombie hunting.
Yep.
It's a lot more explore. Oh, that mini open world section I didn't really like either. I was kind of like, I wish this would end, but then I realized everything's optional, so my fault.
No, the more I played, the less I did a lot of those optional and scavenging things.
Yeah, I never really found a purpose other than like, I have more ammo. And then I think you got a shotgun early on, but then you get a shotgun later, so I was like, well, that was worthless.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you will come across it eventually anyways. Well, the problem was I'm either, like, even if I didn't do any of that, I will eventually fill up my ammo space anyways because the clips are so small. There's really no point in doing all that needless scavenging.
Yeah, so, yeah, you run out of ammo real quick, but it's a survival game in a way, so when you're like, what do I expect, I guess? I expect to be out of ammo.
Well, it's being marketed as like an action horror game, but when you don't have enough things to do the action, then it's kind of failing.
Yeah, no, I understand that too.
Yeah. So we're definitely picking up an echo on your end.
I'm trying to fix that. How's it going? Not working?
I mean,
cool.
No, it's not working.
Awesome. I'm doing so good. I'm trying. I'm sorry.
You're doing great.
All right, tell you what. You guys keep talking. I'm going to try a different pair of headphones. Give me a second.
All right. So that's that. All right. Cool. Retro magazine review, retro section. I'm going to play the next drop, and we can get into our theme. Let's see. What am I going to play here? All right. I like that Zombies Ate My Neighbors theme. Not bad, right, guys? No? Yes?
Oh, yes. That drop was so amazing.
Amazing. I'm so glad you heard it, Joey. Well, you played the game. Do you not remember the music?
No.
Oh, boo.
Not at all. But I did just buy the Spyro Reignited Trilogy on Steam.
Oh, cool. I think
because it was half off.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy that. I still like Ripto's Rage the most. That's the second one. But I think I think Year of the Dragon's still the best, but the kangaroo parts, which we discussed.
So I'm excited.
Yeah, previous episode.
I want to see how well they look when they're remastered. Yeah,
looks good. They added voice acting, better cinematic little cutscenes, a little bit more life to the world with their limitations that they had back then. They didn't overproduce it. So, all right, Sega Rpgs. It was my theme pick. So the criteria was during the Genesis to Saturn era, as Sega tried to compete with Nintendo, and the emphasis of RPGs was a big part of the appeal and gap between Sega and Nintendo. Nintendo had the Zeldas and Final Fantasies and Dragon Quests of the world, while Sega really only had Shining Force and Phantasy Star. So that was where they were really lagging behind. So during, I guess, the mid to late Genesis era, they enacted this kind of RPG task force in which they wanted to create, 7, 8, 9 titles, and then encourage studios to come up with an RPG of their own to compete with Nintendo. You back, Kevin?
I am.
All right. Hey, seems to have worked.
Yeah, my normal headphones just, I guess if you open Audacity in a different order, it goes, nah.
Maybe?
Yeah, don't worry about it. Anyway.
Okay. So we're into our theme now.
Oh, I heard you the whole time.
All right. So yeah,
I heard what Colin said.
all right.
Jerk.
So there was a movement and goal from Sega to create RPGs of all sorts, and that was the goal here, was to emphasize some of those RPGs that Sega wanted to be a part of, wanted to poorly market, as we will learn. And yeah, it was just this small gap in time. Genesis to the Saturn also includes the Sega CD, the 32X. We did not pick any 32X or CD games.
Good.
Yeah, but we did get this theme done, and I think we got a unique set of games chosen for the podcast. All right,
Yeah.
so I'll go into my first pick. It was Crusader of Centy, aka Ragna Centy, otherwise known as. Came out on the Sega Genesis. It goes for about $300+, or
That's too many dollars.
you can get the PAL version for $35, or a repro cart, which is what I got, and I discovered that the save battery is non-existent inside it.
Oh,
Good.
no.
So, luckily the game's only about 10 hours, so I just did 2 play sessions, 5 hours each, and I left the Genesis on overnight. Very old school of me. And no problem. Yeah. What I ended up doing. Developed by Nextech, published by Sega and Atlas for North America. Came out in Japan June 17th, 94, the EU January 95, and North America March 95. And if you're wondering, that seems kind of late in the Sega Genesis lifespan. That's because it was. It was at the very end. The game was not advertised really at all, nor did it have much marketing, because Sega was all up in confusion with their failure of the 32X and going into the really wanting to market the Sega Saturn going forward. So putting out a new IP that's untested very late into the Genesis timeline was not one of their priorities, which is kind of counterproductive from their even starting the RPG goal in the first place. And that's a theme we will see for the rest of this podcast with these games. It's a top-down action-adventure RPG where you, the character Corona, very timely.
This is a very timely episode.
Yeah. Battles the monsters throughout the world, in which you will gain friends, aka animals, and you'll get their abilities to help you out along the way. The first half is you actually get... you meet a witch, and she gives you the ability to speak to animals, but you can no longer speak to humans. And then the second half, you gain your ability back to talk to humans, and then little time travel elements kick in with tornadoes and the like on the overmap. And the game does a very interesting thing where it's supposed to be a Zelda clone type thing. And yes, in a lot of ways, it's very much, when you start playing it, you go, this is fucking Zelda, just by the look and feel of it all. But it doesn't. Yeah. It does enough differently that I could say it's a top-down action-adventure. I can say this was the only one I was able to complete for the podcast. It does so much different than Zelda that this feels like this could have been something big for Sega. It really could have been. This game, I feel, is fantastic. It plays very well. The adventure makes perfect sense. The dialogue's a little childish. The game itself is pretty childish. What did you guys think of Crusader of Centy?
I liked it. I mean, I thought it was a really fun mechanic that all of your abilities are linked through your animal friends. Like you, for lack of a better word, equip your penguin friend. That's the other thing. One of the main mechanics is that you can throw your sword like a boomerang.
Really cool stuff, yeah.
And when you've got your penguin friend equipped, he'll add the power of ice to your sword when you do that.
Yep.
And then another friend will a cheetah friend will have you run faster so you can jump over wider gaps.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there's a jumping mechanic in this game, which is very useful it almost brings a platforming element to the game itself, which is really
making it better than Zelda. Confirmed.
The Game Boy Zelda's had a jumping mechanic. Of course, you needed an item for it.
I was thinking of like the 3D ones where you just have to run at a ledge and hope it decides to make you jump.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, this one was fun. I mean, it's got very smooth animations, and I don't know if this is a thing with my emulator ROM or not, but I felt like the English translation was a bit choppy and awkward. But
no, yeah, it was translated piss poor.
Piss poor, right?
You're not wrong. It is a very poor translation. The text on the screen was awkward and choppy. Misspellings of the words like they and their and your and you are. Very frequent. Very frequent. Anyway, what did you think of Centy?
I thought it was kind of. I didn't like the music or the sound effects. They got annoying really fast. But I felt the look of it was kind of like Zelda meets Pokemon. So it was kind of interesting.
That's what I was thinking too.
Because all that tall grass, all I can think of, ooh, when's the Pokemon encounter going to happen?
No.
Go on, Colin. Go.
One of the other things I really liked is that it's got like an overworld where you can like skip past certain levels instead of just running through them every time you want to get somewhere. It's like
yes.
It looked something like Super Mario World.
Yes, I thought that was really cool. So the world is separate. So instead of dungeons, what you have is you go to, say, you leave your main town Soleil, or however you pronounce it, Soleil, and you can go across the map, basically any which form that you want, and the whole objective is to basically get to the end of that stage, right, or board that you picked, and you will fight a boss creature, and they're generally not too tough, but you need you always need a certain animal friend to give you their ability to help you out to get to the next section, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to pass it. So, like each board area has a secondary area that you have to be able to get to, and that will ultimately unlock more of the game and go from there. So it's about discovering which animal that you need, and then finding that animal. And so I found myself actually just writing down, okay, so this because each one has the name of, that board that you're going to, like the mountainous region is like, okay, so name of that place. Okay, I'm stuck in there. What do I need? Okay, I probably need, there's a big gap that I might need to jump over, or there's spikes, so maybe I need that. Maybe I'm too slow. I'm writing that down, and then when I fight a boss and, I got a penguin, I probably need that for the fire region to freeze stuff or cool stuff off. So, cool, I'll go to that region with the penguin, and then, okay, so I got a fire one at the end. Where would I need that? Okay, just start wandering around the maps, and the areas aren't very long. They're not long enough where you feel like it's a chore to go through them a second or even third time. So really cool stuff, very simple mechanics. Nothing was like super hard. Did you guys have any troubles or getting lost elements to the game at all?
Sometimes it could be a bit unclear where you needed to go next. I mean, sure, you can talk to the character to figure out what the most pressing thing is. Like, they'll say, this place has suddenly been hit with snow, even though it's right next to the desert. Or this other place, there's a big catastrophe, or stuff like that, really.
Right.
But other times I couldn't quite figure it out, although still a couple of times I had to consult a guide, but I imagine if I were still a kid with more patience, I'd be able to figure it out fairly easily. Of course, if I hadn't had like five other games to focus on at the time.
It's not just me, JD. I told you this is a bold choice during Last of Us week. Bold choice.
I'm not playing Last of Us though.
Or Kingdom Hearts week, whatever it is. I don't know.
I'm just saying, if we do RPGs like this, we probably should cut down the number of games. We can focus closely on those games and maybe spread this off against 2 podcasts or 3.
Yeah. RPGs are hard, but
really, this wasn't any like time frame of the games. This wasn't any longer than the previous one we did.
Boo! We're taking you down.
It's only a 10-hour game.
Yeah.
This really screams like Me Too. I want to be Linked to the Past to me, which I always felt, because actually my old boss at the game store actually owned this game, like a legitimate copy. It was in his like do not sell case, and he let us play it for a bit. And the whole time we're just sitting there thinking, I think it was the first time he must have played it. We're all just looking at each other like, this is just Link to the Past, isn't it, guys? And then we're all just like, yeah, no, this is Genesis Link to the Past. And even playing it now, I really just felt like this is Link to the Past. What am I doing? Like, I guess it's one of those scenarios where like this is a good game on its own, but I'm constantly comparing it to something superior that like I couldn't get the full enjoyment out of it.
See, I think there were a lot of interesting elements to this where it separated enough for me, and this is Sega's answer, right? This should have been a hit, I feel.
Which it should have, but again, I think a lot of people could see right through it, you know? Like, I don't know, maybe you had, like, one friend who had this game, if you were, you know, one of the few people that bought it, and you just go, yeah, I got, like, Zelda at home, and I'm sure, like, somebody showed them Zelda and went, oh, yeah, huh. Well, all right, then. That's me.
I feel like it still does enough different.
The fact that you can collect friends, you get 18,
you have to collect your friends.
You get 18 different animals, each with their own abilities, and you can equip 2 animals at a time. They kind of follow behind you on the map, which is a really cool, just visual aspect to it all. Just getting the right 2 combinations for certain areas, I thought was solving a puzzle in itself at times. Going through the bronze, silver, gold medal area to prove that you're like the true hero, and you know, getting a little farther each time to this. It's almost like an obstacle course utilizing your animal friends was really fun. I think Link to the Past definitely has the more fantastical story element to it. This one lacks in that story, but it's really targeting a younger core audience, and I think it successfully wanted the younger children as opposed to, say, the teenagers, or even the ones that are about to become teenagers. That's what this felt like.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Although early in the game, there's a Sega Easter egg.
Oh, is there? Do
at
tell.
The beach area.
Oh.
It's Sonic the Hedgehog lounging on a chair.
Oh, of course it is. Why would it not? Yeah. EGM only gave this a 7.75 out of 10, saying equally as good as Zelda, but then they gave it a lower score, which was very strange. The words did not match the output, which is a very common complaint for a lot of people in review scores, especially, say, IGN today. This game sucks, this game this game that. It needs all this 9 out of 10. But Mean Machine Sega, which is was a popular magazine in the UK, I did find some quotes from this one, because I've tried to seek out this magazine as much as I can, because it was popular in Europe, UK specifically. they praised every aspect of the game. They gave it 92 out of 100, and successfully targets its younger core audience for a Zelda-type game. Big quote there. So, it got praise. So
I mean, yeah, it should get praise. It's a worthwhile game plan.
Yeah,
it's a good.
I'm gonna go on, like, I'm passing this game very easily. This has immediately become one of my favorite Sega Genesis games I own now, repro or not. It's I kind of want to play this again. It was, the fun factor was through the roof. Everything was very intuitive to me. Everything made sense. The swing mechanic was very fluid and nice. I love the boomerang to it all. I know what you mean, Joey, about the sound effects. That definitely worth improvement upon, for sure. But yeah, I pass Crusader of Centy. I'm very, very happy that I picked this topic just to basically play this game.
Yeah, I pass it too. It was fun.
I give it a pass, but just go play Link to the Past instead, and don't spend $200. You know, only spend $100 because Nintendo prices.
I spent $8 for a repro cart.
How dare you?
For the 300 original version, definitely failing it. So if you can get it for anything cheaper than that, he'll be passed.
Hey guys, what if you could download something and play it for free?
Hey, you wouldn't download a car, would you?
Wouldn't download a car, would you?
First of all, yes, I would, because I'd be like, what am I doing?
Hey, you might be able to with some 3D printers. If you get a big enough one.
I can't wait for it to crumple by the slightest fender bender.
I didn't say it'd be...
Hey, you never said you had to download a good car. It just said a car.
He did get me there.
All right. My second game I picked was another Crusader title, Light Crusader, also on the Sega Genesis.
Wait a minute. I'm just have a long play of this up, and I just read the comments, and the first one says, "Really is a lovely game. I programmed the English language translation as well as the other EU languages, so I was forced to play it all the way through." And this guy is saying, yeah, no, he fucked up a lot of the English.
Poor guy.
Interesting. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
So this game goes by itself for $12. It's also available on the Sega Classics Collection, which is how I played this. It is developed by our boys, Treasure.
Oh.
Love them boys. Published by Sega, released May 25th, 1995. So here we are again, another RPG released extremely late into the lifespan. Game clocks in at a measly 5.5 hours. I played about 2.5. It's an isometric. Yeah, it's an isometric. You played it to the end, Colin?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. You can inform us in a bit here. It's an isometric RPG. The important thing to note is this game takes place in this kind of barren town where there's not much in it, and you essentially, it's one large dungeon you go into with many floors to traverse. So that's the big aspect of it. Each room kind of has a puzzle to solve in a lot of ways, whether it's platforming or moving giant boulders around or what have you. It's very frequent. It's a huge basis of the game. The good thing is if you mess up a puzzle, you can leave a room and reset it. However, this was what I got annoyed with. If you're backtracking through the stages and levels, they don't stay solved. So it's very much a chore having to redo the things. Of course, when you solve a puzzle, you know how to then accomplish it that much faster. It's still just very cumbersome. And then there's a hilarious jump dive technique, which was very spam-worthy, which is what I did. That's how I was able to go through the game. So the character will jump, and then he'll just do this diagonal, swan dive towards an enemy, which is absolutely hilarious. It's very much worth looking up. And then the jumping. There's certain platforms, and because it's isometric, your concept of distance is off, so you will find yourself missing these platforms quite often. At the very least, there's shadows to help judge it, and the game doesn't punish you for missing these things. Like, you just, I missed it, go back up. So.
Yeah, isometric is probably the worst perspective for platforming, even above first person.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on. Sorry to interrupt, but I lost the audio. Hold on.
It's okay, Kevin. I think I'll be using the backup audio for this one with all of these issues.
Yeah, my audio shit the bed already.
Oh my god. You guys are a disaster. Joey, you're my saving grace. You're the only one.
So you're saying I need to fuck up my audio?
No,
just
don't
to join
do that.
The group.
Don't do that. Be my friend, not my enemy.
Excuse me for not being able to afford a better computer. Or excuse me for Discord not fixing their shit with the Macs.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll just have to do Zune. Whatever it's called. We'll do the entire podcast on TikTok.
We can just do a Snapchat and then have filters and do FaceTime.
All right, Joey, what did you think of Light Crusader before Colin goes into like how the rest of the game goes, what he thought of the ending, all that stuff?
The 3D aspect of it really didn't work, especially with the jump puzzles. It was kind of annoying, and having the game slightly on an angle, so you would have to walk directionally most of the time. Kind of got annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I thought the music was terrible.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with you.
I don't know. It was okay. I was actually surprised how well the movement was, but it could have been just because I was playing on the Steam version.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel clunky or anything. It just, the jump puzzles just didn't feel like they worked well. Because getting the 3D feel of some of the rooms, just you thought the platform was somewhere, but it actually off because it just didn't sit right. But other than that, it wasn't too bad.
I thought the fighting, like swinging the sword, it lacked impact. And that's something there's another game that did it. And if you are swinging a weapon in a retro game, you need to have that either clear visual feedback, but also a feel to it all. So like when you're playing a beat 'em up, if these enemies are just flashing and you're not getting a kickback of any kind, then you don't know how to gauge how to fight, and you're not feeling like you're in the fight. You're not engaged enough into it.
At least the things I fought, they're pretty dumb. Like I'm gonna say maybe goblins or orcs, I don't know. They're just naked green humans. I would just hit them, run away, run back, hit them, and they'd be so slow they would attack the direction I was and not where I was going. So they weren't really responsive. So it's really easy.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. Kevin, you back? You there? Surviving? Take that as a no. Okay, Colin.
Apparently not.
Colin, go into kind of the second half of the game, what you thought of it, the ending, etc., etc.
Alrighty. I found that in the second half of the game, there were some puzzles that I found it irritating that there's like a small stone cube that was literally there as misdirection, because up to that point, so many puzzles incorporated every single little item in the room, like say boulders or cubes or whatever else.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Every single item was necessary, but then in the second half of the game, they just decide to troll the player. It's like, here's a stone cube, but you don't use it at all.
Oh, so it's kind of fooling
so you end up losing a lot of time trying to figure out how to incorporate that cube into it, only to realize later it's completely useless. So that kind of ground my gears. But I did like that you can actually like combine the 4 different types of magic that you can use.
Okay, yeah.
Like you combine fire and earth, you'll get like a meteor spell. Or if you combine fire and wind, you'll get a like a full-on fireball spell. Earth and wind, you can cast thunder. You get the idea.
Yeah, you know what this was missing, though?
What's that?
The power of heart.
Yeah.
No, they had to keep it out because they want you to have Captain Planet.
It should have been it should have been in there as a cheat.
You summon Captain Planet and he just destroys everything on the screen over and over again.
Yeah. That would have been hilarious.
I'm gonna bring pollution down to 0, motherfucker.
That's aggressive.
And then he ends up killing the hostages too.
Yeah. Oh, of course. You will not pollute this groundwater. Kevin, are you still here? Are you with us?
I don't know what happened. Somehow my headphones were just like, no.
This podcast is a disaster.
I'm a column today.
Oh my god.
It's what it is. I'm sorry. Everything's a mess because of me.
Everything's a mess. Hopefully it's entertaining for our listeners. All right. What did you think of Light Crusader? So we can quickly go on with this thing.
Immediately, any game that's isometric can fuck itself.
Okay, that's fair.
Navigation's awful. I didn't like the combat. I played this for about 10 minutes and I was like, no. So I ain't gonna get too far into it. Like it seems like a really budget RPG because they needed to make one. Does that make sense?
It's weird because it's Treasure. Like, they generally make very good to solid things, and I honestly think this is the first Treasure game I didn't like.
Yeah,
really?
I think so. There was just too many elements to this game where I just wasn't into it. I'm like, why did you do it this way? Why I didn't think the fighting was fluid enough. The magic was cool. I mean, you know what? I'll go 50-50 on it. There were a lot of things I liked, a lot of things I didn't like. And if I have that much negative to it, the balance just isn't there. So how does this game end, Colin?
Well, the second to last floor has you in like this like a warp area that brings you to like 8 different levels that are different environments with different themes. Like this whole game up to now is like medieval fantasy themed, but you can, when you had to go to these different levels, one theme will be like a World War II war zone. You're fighting soldiers with guns and grenade launchers.
Oh fuck!
And
should have been doing that the whole time.
And then the boss fight is a tank. And then another one has you fight a futuristic alien invasion. And then another one is like ancient Egypt themed, so you're fighting a lot of mummies.
Did we play the same game?
That sounds fucking awesome. Why is that at the end?
It's second to the end.
That doesn't sound like the same game at all.
A modern city, and another one is a Tron environment.
Oh.
It's pretty wild.
I'm gonna have to look this up after the podcast.
Yeah, definitely do that.
Oh my god!
You have to like rescue 8 different priests from these different environments, and then they'll open like a gateway to get you to the final level.
What am I fighting? Zool from Ghostbusters or something?
You're fighting like a summoned demon, but he turns out to be piss easy.
Oh, all right. Well, Zool is pretty easy too in Ghostbusters. All right.
But yeah, I actually enjoyed this one overall. I mean, Hal played it to the end, but maybe that's just because it was so. I mean, sure, I agree. There are elements to it that don't quite work, like the fighting could have been a little better implemented, and the isometric perspective doesn't lend itself to platforming, so that could be a problem. But overall, I still enjoyed it.
So EGM gave this a 25 out of 40. 3 out of the 4 reviewers just torching the game, especially the lack of direction and the minute story to it all. Plus, they all hated the isometric view, so you're not alone, Kevin.
Isometric should never have been a thing.
Whoa, where did you go? Speaking to the microphone.
Your volume's a little low.
What'd I do?
Speaking
Your
to the
volume's a
microphone, you
little
fool.
low.
What the fuck is going on?
I'll just go into your audio settings and like increase output volume or something. That should work.
Everything's going wrong. I'm sorry.
All right,
Just use your backup audio.
That's what I'm doing, but you're a million miles away.
You're a million miles
Thank you.
away.
That's better.
All right, Mean Machine Sega gave this 80 out of 100. Directly compared it to a lesser Beyond Oasis type game. Too easy and too dull. So, not the biggest of praise from this game. I'm unfortunately gonna fail this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I pass it.
Hard fail.
I'm gonna soft fail it.
Soft fail.
I
Yeah.
think if it didn't have jump puzzles, it would be a little more enjoyable.
Fair enough.
I just don't know anyone that likes isometric games like on purpose. There's always an exception, but like I've never been like, yeah, isometric. I love not being able to tell where I am.
Okay. Colin, your pick.
Alrighty. So let me bring up my notes. I chose Panzer Dragoon Saga on Sega Saturn. Developed by Team Andromeda and published by Sega. Released on the Sega Saturn in Japan on January 29th, 1998, in North America on April 30th, 1998, and in the PAL regions on June 5th, 1998. And for a legit copy, it goes for about $350+, although the PAL version goes for $9.
You guys see a pattern here with
What?
the pricing?
Wait, it goes for $9 on PAL?
Yeah.
But
That's according to video game pricing, yeah.
What the fuck? Okay.
now, the game's plot centers around a character named Edge. Yes, that's his name.
Damn right.
On this
Who is-
day,
Who is a
I see
mercenary.
clearly.
A mercenary working for the Empire, who were like the villains for Panzer Dragoon games.
Yeah, they're assholes.
Who, after a clash with a military faction from a neighboring nation, acquires a dragon companion and meets a mysterious girl who leads to a lost advanced civilization in the midst of a post-apocalyptic world. And the game centers around Edge trying to stop this rogue faction from getting to an ancient super weapon that can end the world. So that's typical JRPG stuff.
Yep. Nothing crazy. Until
Yeah, I had to watch a long play of this because I don't have a Sega Saturn, nor do I have plus $350.
Why did you pick this?
Because I was curious about it. I mean, it's sure, but it's also got a major cult following, and it seems like there's a lot of stuff, stories surrounding the game that are pretty interesting too. Like the development itself is an early example of how detrimental crunch culture is to people's health. Like 2 team members actually died. Like one died in a motorcycle accident and the other by suicide, and both were attributed to stress from working on the game.
fuck.
And
Cost of doing business, man, you know?
Oh my
Gotta
god,
put that
Kevin.
out there.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
Jesus.
according to Wikipedia, all the crunch was chalked up to Sega's inexperience with working with large teams at the time.
It's almost like
And-
RPGs they were not familiar with.
Yeah, pretty much. And like I said, the game is expensive as hell. It can sometimes sell for upwards of $1,000.
Yeah, for
And
a
the main
complete copy.
reasons for the lack of a re-release / remaster are A, emulating Sega Saturn games is apparently quite difficult, owing to the Saturn having was it 4 different processors, JD?
Yes, I believe you're right.
Yeah. And B, Sega apparently lost the source code, so porting it would be a monumental effort.
Just remake it.
And yeah.
Ground up.
And C, there is a lack of demand. It's no reason to put in the effort to make the first two reasons happen. But still, big cult following. Those who love it a lot. And for those who don't know, this game differs quite a bit from the previous two Panzer Dragoon games. The first two were rail shooters, but this one is a full-on turns RPG. Although its gameplay is still reminiscent of the rail shooter roots.
Dude, it is awesome.
Yeah. Like, the battle mechanics themselves, much like Final Fantasy VII Remake, you get ATB bars that fill themselves. In this case, 3 instead of 2.
Right.
And you can alternate attacks. Like, for some attacks, Edge can use his gun for a single target attack that does more damage, and for another, the Dragon can shoot lasers onto all enemies at once, which do less damage overall, but you can get more enemies in the crossfire. And I find it to be a nifty way of keeping the mechanics familiar from the previous games, but bringing it into a turn-based setting. It feels really ahead of its time. Plus, you can also switch your position mid-battle relative to the enemy to get better shot angles, and it doesn't cost any ATB gauges to do so. Although, as you're doing so, you end up pausing the regeneration of the gauges. And you can apparently also adjust your stats mid-battle too, because you can change fighting style of your dragon. Like, you can increase power and defense in exchange for agility and magic abilities.
It creates a really cool strategy element to battles.
Yeah.
So, you come across one. The boss battles are plenty in this game, which is really cool. Keeps things fresh and interesting. So, one boss could attack you rarely, but it hits really hard when he does. So you have the strategy could be, okay, I predict he's going to attack after X amount of time, so I will change my stats to a more defensive tactic, and then in between I will change to a heavy offense or a swift attack where I can maneuver faster to get to a weak point. It's really cool how on the fly you can do that, and everything's focused around your dragon, not your character. So the dragon itself levels up. There is one area in particular where you don't have the dragon, so there's no real sense of grinding in the game, since the RNG experience of random battle encounters isn't too bad, actually. I found one area highly annoying where the random encounter rate was incredibly high, and that was the desert area. And yes, I do have this game. I have the Japanese version. It's called Panzer Dragoon Azel, which is the name of the main girl character that you meet. Yeah. The Panzer Dragoon games are more or less named after characters. Panzer Dragoon 2, even though that's German for 2. This one's Azel. The Xbox game, which upon as I was playing this one, I immediately went on eBay and bought Orta for the Xbox. So that's a character for Orta. I bought this game years ago for about $30. It's across 4 discs. I played just over half, so I'm on disc 3 of the game. And what this game does that really impressed me is the character models, they don't look particularly great. It hasn't aged that well, but when you think about what the Saturn was able to do in 1998 and how ahead of its time is, there's full-on voice acting in this game. Full-on voice acting completely. And they tend to speak this weird, it's Japanese most of the time, but every once in a while you'll get characters from the Crayman group or the Empire group that speaks this hybrid German, English, and Japanese mixture. So I found myself knowing like 2/3 of a sentence at times, which was very strange. And then,
That's funny.
because I played the Japanese version, I was like watching cutscenes on the computer next to me as I was playing the game. I did something similar with my Saturn copy of Snatcher. And then it occurred to me while I was playing this, fuck, I wonder if this works. And that is putting up the phone translator where you just have your camera up and it'll in real time translate the word onto the screen. So like whenever I was in battle and I got a new item or something, I was like, okay, let's see if this works. And then I'd like look at the Let's Play that's going next to me and I go, oh, okay, so that was it. It made it a little bit of a longer experience, and it made me go through things a little bit, a lot slower at times as well. That's why I wasn't playing as fast. But it really created an interesting experience, I must say. And the game is very, very somber. Like, everything's this low, sad type music. The characters all talk in riddles to each other. Well, how do you... there's one where Azel and our character Edge are talking about, why she's working for Crayman. He's like, he killed my friends and my unit, and he's an asshole. He betrayed us. Like, well, he woke me up from sleep, and I'm just gonna do what he says. He's cool. And he's like, but all my friends died. And she goes, I think this is the moment where I apologize. So I'm sorry. I get the feeling that's what humans do. I was like, okay, so there's a lot of it's a weird, very dry sense of humor to the game. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it's what it came across as.
I hope it's not intentional because that makes it better.
I don't think it was intentional.
It was pretty great though.
So yeah, this is like the battle system alone creates one of the most unique experiences I've ever had in games. You travel via the dragon. You're always in the air. It very much like Centy in ways where you have an overworld map and then you just click to go to the next area and then that's where you go into. My two biggest complaints in the game is when I'm in a cutscene, the subtitles go atrociously too fast, where I couldn't keep up with the dialogue. So that was a no bueno moment. And then there's points where I'm Edge on the ground, and the camera has this very weird low, looking up slightly view. You remember seeing this, Colin?
I don't know.
Behind the character and it's like slightly up. It's almost like the camera is at Edge's waistline and looking up at his head. It's a very, very strange choice.
I don't know if that was a thing in the long day I was watching.
No, it definitely is. That's the default camera of the game. Yeah, it's when you're Edge in, say, your main like rest town area that you get to the game. So this is definitely a game I want to complete, especially since I've put so many hours into it now. I'm definitely gonna try and complete this before I go back to Final Fantasy VI, which is like one of my long-term stories of the year, it seems.
Just like me in Final Fantasy VII.
Like, my God.
Just to play how many RPGs in 2 weeks, but you're still in Final Fantasy VI.
Well, I mean, that's kind of my go to bed, play it a little bit per thing game. So
the defense rests.
It's a slow go. I don't feel like I'm missing too much by going at this pace. But yeah, Panzer Dragoon, Azel. It's a real shame this probably will never be re-released in any form or fashion. If you can somehow get like a Saturn emulator to work, or get any emulator of this game, and if you have a Saturn, get a... I haven't been able to find a repro copy, but if you can get your hands on it in any way that's a reasonable price, I would say hop on it quick. This is fantastic. In a lot of ways, it broke a lot of the boundaries Final Fantasy VII did, but because it was piss poor marketing by Sega, like there's a whole story behind Panzer Dragoon Saga on why it failed.
Can't you burn Saturn games?
I know you can burn Dreamcast games. I know there's
Worth
a way
looking
that
into.
you can play burned games on your Saturn. Same thing as PlayStation, but you have to like go about certain. You have to go around about it. Like I have some burned Saturn games, but I went into the whole pseudo cart thing on a past episode. If you remember, Evan.
I do.
Yeah. Joey, what did you think of Panzer Dragoon Saga?
Actually, didn't really like it.
Oh, why not?
I hate the wing sound. That got really annoying really fast of the dragon, and I don't like the dragon's placement on screen. It just, I don't know. I can see why people like it. It's just not for me. I just didn't find it enjoyable.
Fair enough. Kevin.
I didn't even get to play this because I don't got a Saturn. I don't got a $300 to kill. I was like, who this? But from what I see, I get why people like it. I feel like this is something I actually have to play to make an opinion on. That makes sense.
I think
Don't act surprised.
I think if you got your hands on this game, you would like it, Kevin.
I pass via JD's recommendation.
I think with your flavor of RPGs, you would be weirdly into this.
Don't call my taste weird.
I said your flavor.
That's somehow weirder.
When you lick the game, you'll understand.
And it got weirder.
Sold. Switch cartridges taste bad, but I bet a Saturn disc. Ooh.
Yeah, just real quick, EGM basically gave this game a 95 out of 100. Especially praised the unique battle system. Nothing but good things to say. I agree. I easily passed this game. Easily.
Yeah, I pass it too.
I'm gonna fail it, but I can see why people would enjoy it.
Ready, Joey, your pick.
Yes, my pick. Landstalker, The Treasures of King Nole. I guess it's $25 for Genesis. Developed and published by Sega. Came out in 92 for Japan and 93 for North America and Europe.
Early title. Finally.
Yeah. I mean, this one wasn't too bad, but just like every other game in the podcast, I hate the music. it just gets old. But it actually, I mean, for being as early, it looks pretty good. And I'm just glad I played on the Steam version because I fast forward through the intro and also had the ability to rewind the game. So if I fell down a hole, I could just rewind and come back up. So it was kind of hard. I don't like that you have to jump upstairs. Like, just make it so I can go upstairs. Why do I have to jump constantly to get up? So the angles on jumping was a little annoying, like the floating platform in the first dungeon you get into.
Yep.
That shouldn't be hard just to jump on something moving slow, but it took a little bit to get used to jumping on that angle. But I don't know. I liked it. I liked the art. I liked the characters. I liked the caveman-esque talent you visit after the first dungeon if you fall down the water. I don't know if you're supposed to or not, but I tried to make a jump and fell. And then that scene felt like it went on too long. Like, you drifted over the same scene of water like 2 or 3 times in a row, and I didn't feel like that wasn't necessary. But I actually liked it. It was fun.
Kevin?
Well, it's isometric, so, great start. I mean, it's the better of the isometric games I've played, but
I agree.
I really I can't get over those controls of, like, which way is up, I did, like, little dungeons. The character is clearly, I am Link, I promise. I got to play with it for, like, a half hour to an hour, and I had fun with what I did. I would actually continue playing this. I feel like it's something that would get a remake, actually, if it came up to it, because if you want, it's not really, can we call it an RPG? It's more of like an action RPG, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's an action RPG.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. It was good exploring the dungeons. I had an easy time getting around, minus the physical controls. But it's worth playing. I mean, if you're looking for some kind of RPG on the Genesis that isn't Shining Force, yes. I mean, there's better games out there, but if you only had a Genesis growing up, I would recommend this.
On?
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, I feel like the platforming, yeah, it had similar problems to Light Crusader, but it certainly had a unique approach to certain things, like in shops and inns, that in order to buy stuff, you pick it up off the shelf and then place it on the counter instead of just, talking to the guy behind the counter. Just felt a little unnecessary. And once everything's off the shelves, you gotta exit and then re-enter in order to buy more stuff if you're looking to really load up on
restock those shelves, man.
Yeah, but it just feels like needless busy work. But honestly, I wasn't feeling this game at first, but after a while it grew on me. It's like, one thing I really like is that whenever you lose all your health, your little fairy companion will use one of the healing items you have on you to revive you. And it's much less annoying than having to start at the beginning of the dungeon all over again.
Mm.
Of course, then again, unlike Zelda, you tend to lose health a lot more easily in this one.
Yeah, it created a very cumbersome difficulty level, and that's a word I found myself using a lot while playing this game, is the word cumbersome.
Yeah.
He said come.
Nice.
Yes, Kevin is involved in that.
Yeah, I found attacking to be really annoying, and in that you can really only attack, you attack the square you're facing with only a little bit of leeway on how far to the side the enemy can be. I mean, given that the attack animation shows your character swinging in an arc, you'd think you'd hit the squares directly to the right and left of the square directly in front, but no. There's only a small bit of leeway there.
Right. So,
and sometimes the dungeons have a lot of backtracking, which can be annoying, but thankfully these dungeons aren't particularly big, at least compared to Light Crusader, so it's not as much of a problem here.
I played probably about 4 hours, I would say, and then I looked up how long this game is to beat. Fuck, it's 17 and a half hours. I was like,
oh,
fucking, I was like, dude, are you kidding me? How?
No, I'm not playing this for that long.
No. So I was having fun with this game. I really was. It's cartoony type art design. I think is more appealing than, say, Light Crusader, and we can definitely compare these two games to each other. Not just because it's isometric. It's just its overall presentation, sort of medieval type stuff. But this presents itself in more cartoony. I think it was more appealing to the time as well. The game has a strange presentation to it. It gives you short segment areas with very large black backgrounds to fill space. Almost your stage is on a big void, This did allow for a larger presentation, such as bigger sprites, houses, and the like, as well as a large amount of detail to show for it in that space. So I guess it's kind of a give and take relationship there and what they were able to do on the Genesis. I could be wrong in that, maybe just because the sheer size of the game, that's how they were able to make up for a lot of things. Yeah, I found it pretty damn tough and cumbersome at times. Really got to be a bit patient with the swing. That's kind of what you went into, Colin. Connecting of your attacks. The diagonal movement was definitely cumbersome. I didn't think a lot of these things were deal breakers per se, because I did have a lot of fun with it. I just think that I don't know why the big large backgrounds and that void space bothered me so much. That's what kind of kept me out of it. I wasn't truly immersed in its little world. It felt like something more for the, I don't know, Game Gear or Game Boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. But this was, you know, I mean, it was during the Sega CD, just about to be that 32X era, and this was probably the most known game on the list during the time, from what my research was able to tell me. Although, no reviews found for this game. I couldn't find any magazines that covered this. So that should speak to something else entirely. You know, the other games were reviewed, but the marketing was bad. Perhaps the marketing was here, but then the reviews just were non-existent, so word never got out about it. So, found that very interesting. There's always like some failure in some sort of industry aspect of it, in which none of these games ended up selling well at all. And you know, I'll pass Landstalker. I don't really have too many bad things to say about it. It's definitely something I could see myself continuing into, but I'm definitely way more into Panzer Dragoon Saga, so if that's definitely the game I'm gonna go back and try and beat. Not sure if I might get a physical copy of this game. Maybe. 25 seems a bit steep for it, but for a 17.5-hour game, you're definitely getting your money's worth, I feel. So, I'll pass it. I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah, I pass it too. I mean, despite my complaints. I mean, sometimes even the sense of humor can be funny too, because at one point this one Duke character ends up kidnapping a princess, and then the whole time she's like, "Oh, I've always dreamed about this. Being rescued by a prince."
Oh, okay. I was thinking. My mind went somewhere else with the whole kidnapping thing. Oh, I always dreamed of this. Oh no, she's into some kinky stuff.
We now know JD's fetish. That's great.
He wants to be kidnapped.
I do not. I want to make that very clear. That is not. It is 2020. There are too many things going on the road. No, you will not put those words in my mouth.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it. It has to be a surprise.
Hey, don't kidnap me one day, guys. Wink, wink. You know? Okay. All right, see you.
I do not want you to find the handcuffs from under my bed and the rope in the left cabinet in the kitchen. Do not find those. Do not use those.
Sounds just like Mel Gibson on South Park. You can torture me all you want. I sure hope you don't use those whips on the wall.
Oh, that would just be terrible if you strip off my anyways.
So
Joey,
I'm going to pass this game.
All right, there you go. There's the answer. Good. All right, Kevin. Do you pass it?
What?
You pass this?
I'm gonna give it a soft pass. Yes.
Okay, cool. Let's do our last game here. Your very expensive pick.
You made me do this. To be fair, my very expensive pick is Dragon Slayer for the Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes for the Genesis and Saturn ?
Yes.
When did that happen? Anyway, it was released September 16th, 1994. Game clocks in around 19 and a half hours, according to How Long to Beat. I did not get very far in this because it's Last of Us week. Stop it. This reminds me very much of, like, I want to say Phantasy Star, but I don't even know if that's a good comparison. It's a very, very old RPG. Maybe a little more akin to, like, Dragon Quest or something like that.
Read my notes, are you?
What?
What the hell was that?
I don't know. What was that? Who did that?
Something
Wasn't
that's
me.
Gonna hurt the ears.
Cool. I can't wait till you edit this.
I will do no such thing.
Yeah, okay. All right, so this is the 6th Dragon Slayer game, and most notably the first in the Legend of Heroes series, which means nothing to me because I've never played any of those. What is the Legend of Heroes series?
Colin, inform this poor man.
Okay.
Well, I've only played Trails in the Sky, but
those games.
There you go.
I keep seeing them everywhere, but I've never played them.
It's a fairly recent, recent series of RPGs that are all interconnected story-wise. Sound familiar?
I mean, I know of them, but I haven't played them.
There you go.
So, Yeah, I got a very Dragon Quest vibe from playing this, but I didn't get to do too much of it because Last of Us. But overall, like, I had a good time, and I would go back to playing this if that helps anything. It's a very slow RPG to me.
Yes. It's developed and published by Nihon Falcom, and if you haven't heard of them, you will definitely have heard of, well, the Legend of Heroes series and the Ys series, which we've covered on the cast before.
Oh, yeah, Ys. That's what I'm thinking of when I look at this.
And this game is an original port of the release on the Turbo Duo in 1990. And why does this game qualify? Well, so there was the closure of NEC, basically, and the rights were a focus from Sega. This is what I was able to find from like a Sega historical article, where Sega wanted to get the Dragon Slayer series on their platform, but they couldn't get the exclusivity rights because of it's a third party, right? So this was also available on PlayStation platforms later, but it was not released on Nintendo platforms. So the rumored goal behind why Sega was heavily behind the studio was they were hoping for, because, well, they weren't they were trying to get into the RPG era, like they wanted their own games out, but those take time to develop, so they needed one that was already made, okay? And Nihon Falcom was also already in the process of making a sequel to this, so another Legend of Heroes game. So if this became a popular hit, then they would already have 2 Legend of Heroes games on their platforms available. And with the TurboGrafx and Turbo Duo not doing well, then maybe those fans would go over to Sega because this series transferred over. That's the whole idea behind that.
And that's why we know the Genesis as the RPG system.
Well, of course. Well, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this. So, yes. I found many online reviewers saying that this was more like a 10-hour game, not a 19.5 hour, so it's actually not that long. So, as I was playing it, I'm like, it felt a little slow. I likened this to a hybrid Dragon Quest Phantasy Star game. That was my yeah. Like, it's a battle system very much like Phantasy Star, the overworld way the sprites are lined up with each other was very Phantasy Star-esque. And then the world map was very Dragon Quest-esque, right? It was definitely taking aspects from 2 successful franchises. Ironically, one Nintendo, one Sega. Kind of funny.
Yeah, I tried playing this on my emulator, but it only had the Japanese version, so I ended up watching a long play on YouTube of the TurboGrafx version, because that's the only one available.
Yeah, I did end up playing the Turbo Duo version via emulator myself as well, just so I could play it in English. There's a surprising amount of voice acting in this game. Yeah,
and it's all very awkward voice acting.
Yeah, it felt very amateur to me, and that took me out of the game, and it's the reason why I don't like this game.
I thought it was just ahead of its time. I mean, it's CD, it's early 90s CD, so, take that for what it's worth. I like the anime style story of it all, the presentation, also very much like a Dragon Quest game of the era. So there's aspects of it that are good, but you could definitely tell this was kind of a first attempt title.
Yeah. Yeah, the combat system, unlike Trails in the Sky, it takes place in first-person perspective, and you don't move your characters around on a grid. It plays a bit more like Earthbound or Sweet Home.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
But the battles aren't really random, at least not in like the towns and cities. Although in the overworld, if you use something called a telelens, you can actually see where the enemies are ahead of time, so you can avoid them. But if you flee battle from those enemies, you get they'll remain on screen, and you still have to try and avoid them. So it's something of a hybrid system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. I didn't like the presentation to it with your character stats and the right hand of the screen. That really threw me off. Getting used to it.
It was all in my way all the time, so I had this weird aspect ratio to play with on the left. And Chapter 1, the Uprising, and bold font above you so you know where you are.
Yeah,
you always know.
Yeah, the framing of everything was really weird. It was kind of like Ys 1 and 2. It had that similar border with the stats on the bottom.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, same company, so explains a lot. I don't have a whole lot to say about this other than what's already been said. I think from the historical aspect, that's where the game got a lot of its interest with me. Kevin, do you have any further thoughts?
This is not a $125 game. I find it way too slow to really keep going. It's so average, the price astounds me in a way.
It's a Turbo Duo game, they're pretty rare. So.
Yeah, but yeah.
Genesis, Saturn,
The price doesn't affect quality. I guess it's something we all learned today.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Joey?
Yeah.
I didn't really like it. I really couldn't get past the voice acting.
Fair enough.
It felt like people in a bathroom talking, and at first I thought maybe I downloaded something wrong and someone put that in. So
nope.
I re-downloaded it and it was still there. And I was like, okay.
It's almost like Kevin's audio for the podcast today.
Listen, things are going wrong. Fuck off.
Hooray! The heat's off me for once.
No. This is 1 versus 55.
All right, Colin, you got final thoughts then?
Yeah, one thing that caught my attention is the fact that every character uses the same kind of equipment, like swords, shields, armor, etc.
Yeah.
So there's no class restrictions there. Not sure how I feel about it. I mean, on the one hand, it streamlines the gameplay, but at the same time, it takes away from the variety and strategy of it.
Yeah, I found myself getting bored pretty fast.
Plus, every single character can use any magic spells you assign to them, so it's like a lamer version of Final Fantasy V's system.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
And there's a lot of backtracking in this game after a certain point, because just the way the plot plays out, it's it's bare bones yet complicated. It feels like playing through a Saturday morning cartoon with a Monster of the Week theme. So every chapter has its own villain to slay, but then there's a lot of stuff involved. It has every single chapter has that classic convoluted fetch quest that plagued so many early RPGs.
Sure.
For I think it was chapter 2 or 3. It's you need this relic to rescue the king, but it's in a sealed crypt that can only be opened with a certain key, which has been stolen by pirates who tossed it off the side of the boat. So you need to go underwater. Blah 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 blah. And it gets even more complicated after that. So
yeah, you gotta write it all down. Be like, okay, first I need to get this. Oh, but that's over here. I like your explanation better. That's great. But long story short, yeah, I just couldn't get into this. It just felt it hasn't aged well. I do see what they were going for and where the series ends up going. There's a lot of good ideas here. It just was too early in gaming lifespan. How to put it. I'm gonna fail it, but didn't hate it. Just nothing to really highly praise about it.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether to pass it or fail it. I guess since I'm feeling generous, it's just a very soft pass.
I'm failing it.
Figured you would. Kevin.
Yeah, no, don't pay the money for this. That's all right.
So, our games we play were Crusader of Centy on the Genesis, Light Crusader on the Genesis, Panzer Dragoon Saga on the Saturn, Landstalker, The Treasure of King Nole, also the Genesis, and Dragon Slayer, Legend of Heroes, Genesis and Saturn. Although we all played the Turbo Duo emulator. Okay, I'll go first today, since it's my pick. I'm giving Crusader of Centy an S rating. I fucking adore the game. It's now one of my favorite Genesis games ever. It's for a younger audience, so I'm gonna forgive a lot of the issues I have with it because it is aimed at those younger children. So I am giving that full praise, full marks. It's still not worth $300+, but you can easily get your hands on much cheaper copies. Light Crusader, I will give a solid C. I didn't hate the game, but there was definitely aspects about it which I would fail it. Panzer Dragoon Saga, I will give an A rating. Landstalker, I will give I'll also give that a C. And then Dragon Slayer is my least favorite game. I'll give that a D. Who's next?
I'll go. My most favorite of the cast, I'm gonna say Panzer Dragoon Saga, and least favorite, Dragon Slayer. And for my tiers, I give Crusader of Centy an A tier, Light Crusader B tier, Landstalker C tier, Dragon Slayer low C tier, and Panzer Dragoon easy A tier.
Joey, Kevin, step in, somebody.
Alright, fine, I guess. I was trying to be polite. So I guess for tiers, Crusader of Centy is getting an A tier because it's linked to the past. I'd pass that, obviously. Light Crusader, G. I don't want to play that ever again. Panzer Dragoon, again, maybe if I play it, I'll have a more accurate, but just based off everything I heard, I'm giving it a B. Landstalker's C, whatever, it exists. Dragon Slayer's a D. Just don't.
D for don't.
Yeah,
okay.
D for don't, dumbass.
Joey, you're the deciding factor for a lot of these games' ratings.
Well, for the favorite game and least favorite, I'm gonna put Landstalker's favorite because it's the best not over $100. So okay, I'm gonna have price being a very driving force, and my least favorite is Dragon Slayer. But that being said, Crusader Centy I'll give an A.
All right.
Light Crusader D, Panzer Dragon B, Landstalker I'll give that a B, and Dragon Slayer a D.
Okay, so if I'm looking at this, it seems Crusader of Centy's an A, Light Crusader is a C, Panzer Dragoon an A, Landstalker is a C, and Dragon Slayer's a D. So I will put up the updated tier list on the website, redleafretrocast.blogspot.com. If you enjoy the episode, want to keep hearing more, leave us a nice little review over on Podchaser or iTunes and the like. Hit us up on Twitter at BowlingJD. Kevin, I guess you're loose on Twitter these days.
Here and there, just
here and there.
I'm getting back into it.
Okay. Yeah, and then go check out our other episodes from the past. Hope you enjoyed it. Our next episode is Colin's theme pick over Metroidvania games, which I'm very excited for. Got some cool titles. We're going to that. Of course, we're doing a Metroid game. Won't tell you which one it is, though. You can maybe
Metroid
guess.
Prime Federation Force. That's right. Finally.
Oh no.
Not old enough.
It's old enough. Trust me.
Yeah. So very excited for that one. We'll see you in 2 weeks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye now.
Sorry.